Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our session. I'm Daphne, your host for today's session, and we are very honored to have with us Ms. Anthonia Hui, a veteran in wealth management sector, to share with us on her experience in this sector. Okay, so first of all, we also would have Adrian, who will be having a conversation with Anthonia in the sessions. Okay, so Adrian, say hi again. Hi, Adrian, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Okay, so you'll be having a sessions with Anthonia. So I shall pass over the mic to you, Adrian. Over to you, Adrian.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We wanted to wait for a few more people, but given it's already 6 minutes past 4, we thought we'd start. Yeah. So officially, thank you everyone who has taken the time to be with us this afternoon. A little bit disappointing that we can't meet in person today, but we've tried to engineer this session to hopefully approximate a face-to-face session. Now, because of the size of the crowd and the time allotted, we may not have time to answer every question you submitted, but we will certainly try. Yeah. Well, definitely didn't mention it, but I am one of the career advisors here at the IBF, and I'm very, very excited to be moderating this session because we have got such an interesting and charismatic IBF Fellow here with us today. Just to give you some background on the IBF Fellow sessions, these sessions are basically sessions in which a senior practitioner would come and share some information and industry insights with you all. However, the challenge has always been we don't want sessions to be too high level or contain information that you can probably Google on your own, but instead aspire to have content that can somehow reach, be accessible, be real, and be as applicable to as many of you as possible. Depending on where you are in your lives right now, hopefully there'll be something that you can take away. And that is why for each and every fellow session, we will try to ensure that there are some takeaways, some things you can think about or even put in practice. So in this session, perhaps, you can pick up some of these takeaways through Anthonia's answers. Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce, our IBF fellow for today, the lovely lady you see on the screen. Everyone say hi to Anthonia. Hi, Anthonia. Hi. So very, very pleased that you can take the time to be with us today in the midst of your obviously very busy schedule. Now, for those of you in the audience, you've already read a bit about Anthonia's background through the marketing material that we sent and that you read before you applied for a space on this session. Yeah, how she grew up and how she took charge of her life, how she took charge of her fate, to engineer the life that she has now. Yeah. Now, I said in the beginning that I wanted IBF Fellow sessions to be real, right? And I honestly can't think of any realer person, no person that is more honest and straight talking than Anthonia. All right, so I guess the format of this session would be, I've come up with some interesting questions for her, and then for the people here, when you hear the answers, hopefully maybe you want to write down some points that you resonate with, or that illuminate something for you. Yeah, I also mentioned that we've asked you to submit some questions before you to sign up for this session, and thank you for those people who actually did write those questions. We've sort of collated them, and we will try our very best to answer as many of them as possible. Time permitting, we might even try to answer some questions live as well. Yeah. Now, before I hit her with the first question, Anthonia, do you want to say hello and add anything or say anything to the group of people here today?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to have the opportunity on the virtual basis to meet all the other participants. As Adrian, you mentioned, and definitely saying that I'm a veteran practitioner in the market. Veteran means not just by experience, but also by age. For those one who wonder how old I am, and I can share with you, I'm 62 years old. I've been spending my career over 40 years in banking. So I hope with that span of time that I exist, I would be able to share with you some real life experience. Now, when I talk about life experience, obviously they involve other characters and parties. So whatever I said in here is not a representation of me being discriminative to anybody, and there's no intention to offend or defame or discredit anybody. So please do not take it offensively. And if there's something you hear you don't like, please just ignore me. It is not addressing to you personally. So do apologize in advance. And I'm here open to answer any questions that you might want to throw at me. And if something I don't know and I cannot answer, I will tell you just straight to it. Okay? Thank you.
As I said, guys, you want a real session. This is as real as it's gonna get. So with that, Anthonia, I guess the first question that I have for you to kick off this session is really about the journey. You know, when I first got to know about your background, I was very, 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 very interested. You know, especially from what I read on your website. So let's talk about that if you don't mind. So, can I ask you how did you end up in wealth management? But maybe even more than that, given the circumstances and environment that you grew up in, how did you even get into financial services? And you know, was wealth management the singular thing that you decided that you wanted to do within within financial services?
Well, thank you for the question. I'm actually an accidental banker. When I first started my job after graduating from high school, I didn't go to university because my family cannot even afford to educate me, even from the very young age, and managed to put myself to school all the way to high school. And when I graduated from high school, in my era, as you know, I'm this old, everybody thought banking job, it is a golden rice bowl. And my mother felt the same way. She said, oh, if you can go and get in the bank, fine. So I did actually apply for a banking job as a teller. After a year being a teller, and that time the bank is actually modernizing themselves to introduce computer. The computer in those days is not what you see today. It is actually with a lot of buttons, metal buttons, and it is semi-automatic. So there's still a lot of human intervention. And I was being picked in as one of the youngest staff member to be trained how to use this computer. But after I did it for a while, and I found banking is a very boring job as a teller. You just give out money and then looking at ledger and everything is done manually. So I left and I decided to switch my career to become a secretary. But by me, actually after acquiring this new skill as a secretary, I managed to get myself back into another banking job as a secretary, as a PA towards a department head, whereby I need to support all the secretarial work. Funny enough, in that particular job, it is in the part of the banking called the merchant banking, whereby the bank focus in providing credit facility and loan facility to big organization, shipping company, airline, aircraft financing, all those things, which is big transaction. We're talking about easily few $100 million to $1 billion. Even back in those days, we're talking about in early 1980. So the way how it was conducted at those days, we don't have email and we don't have computer. So everything will have to be manually typed up. So the secretary is very important because we can type. And also we can take minutes by shorthand. And also one thing we do in order to fasten the communication is using telexes. So you need to look at those holes and be able to translate into proper documents. And while I'm doing that, at those days, that particular bank is one of the leading famous American banks. They actually only hire university graduate coming from wealthy family to be in the position as a junior trainee into a senior management role. So I being come from a poor family and being a secretary had no chance. So I basically just supporting the team. But those days, the young people are not unsimilar to what the young people today. They all like going after work to go clubbing. They call, in those days, it's called discoing. So they don't go clubbing and they go discoing, but then there is no mobile phone. So when they left work, there's no way you can contact them unless they are staying at home. And because in order to beat this transaction, the turnaround time is very fast, by 48 hours. And we have to actually connect it to 128 banks in order to get a transaction done. So what happened is one day, London office contact my boss to say they successfully bid for a $1 billion transaction. And we need to turn around the proposal in 72 hours. So my boss called me up and say, we have to get all these staff in order to start doing the work. And this staff job is to analyze the balance sheet, chunk out a proposal to do a risk analysis, whether it is a company worth the bank to participate in lending the money to. But then I cannot find any of them. So my boss was very distressed. And then he said, what am I going to do? He's just about to send me to go to each of these people's home to get them to come back into work. But their parents say they are all going discoing. I don't know where they have gone. So what did I tell my boss is, I told my boss, there's no option for you. There's only one option. I'm standing in front of you. What you're asking these people to do the work, I can do. The reason why is because while these kids like to go in happy hours and party, they actually send me all their work. They teach me how to do their work, from assistant manager to VP to to assistant VP level. So I was doing all the work for them, and they just give me a nice dinner and sometimes take me out to lunch. So I'm learning all what they have taught me. So I told my boss, why don't you give me the next 45 minutes to look at what I can do for you. And if I can give you an outline within the next 45 minutes, then at least you can handle the London office pressure. So he looked at me, he said, what can you do? You're only a secretary. And I said, well, what is your option? And he looked at me and said, oh, okay, I'll let you try 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes time, I analyzed the balance sheet of the company. I type out the commentary that I can identify the issue, and I hand it over to him. And he looked at it and he looked at me, he said, tomorrow, you're no longer a secretary. That is how I begin my career as a junior banker. Now, of course, because being so junior with no family background, no education, I have a lot of discrimination. I have a lot of people doubting on me. But what happened is, because I've been doing the VP's job without people knowing it, so by the time I started my career as a junior, it took me longer time to get to where I am. But by the time when I get to where I am, I have no fear, because all the past experience I have accumulated without people knowing it are going to be in place and ready for me to take on the real challenge. And that accelerates my career movement. Now, that is how I started into banking job. The second part of the question is, how did I get into wealth management? So after I've been in merchant banking, I have an opportunity to go and join an investment bank. I remember when I went for the interview for the person who actually supposed to look for somebody to support her, she actually looked down on me and saying, you have no terrestrial education. How can you imagine yourself to be even able to be a banker? So explain to me, what do you know about interest rate? She basically thought I know nothing, zero. So I felt very intimidated by her, because she is Harvard University graduate with a law degree, and she is very, very intelligent and high power. So, but I hold myself, and I basically tell her from my practical knowledge what is interest rate about. And then she said, okay, anyway, we can try you out. So I actually got into investment banking as a bond salesperson. And I was sitting next to a bunch of bond traders, which actually a bunch of a very male-dominated community. And I remember the way how they greeted you is not good morning, it's good afternoon morning, because this is their basic language and the dialect, and that is how they build the boyhood. And you cannot say, because I'm a woman here, and the way how you talk to me, it is insulting. No, I just keep my mouth shut. And not only that, when you have done something wrong, they will immediately swear at you with all kinds of names that you cannot even imagine how insulting it could be. There's no woman can survive in the place based on today's world, okay? But of course, these men will not be able to survive as well, because there will be a lot of lawsuits thrown at them. But in my era, there's no such kind of thing. So one day, my boss screamed at me and said, how dare you do this thing wrong? And I look at it, I didn't get anything wrong, but they assume I'm the one who made the mistake. So I actually pointed out to them, I have done no wrong. And I used the same language, which means all the swear word, giving back to them. And you know what happened? Their 300 dealers stood up with a standing ovation, clapping their hands, say, now you're graduated to be one of us. So you have to toughen yourself out. And through that particular job, I was dealing mainly with the central bankers. And the central bankers, one of them, a few of them become very good friends. As such, friend in a way is business friend. And they said, Antonia, with your personality, you shouldn't be in investment banking, because it's just too harsh for a woman in this part of the world. So how about you consider private banking? And that was in 1985. And I never heard about private banking existed. I have no idea what private banking is all about. So I actually start chatting with them. They say, hey, we can actually set you up to some of these banks and then to interview you. So you may want to look at that. And because of that, I was actually interviewed strangely by an infamous Swiss bank, which now defunct because of the 1MBD case. And the general manager fly all the way from Lugano, Switzerland, to come and interview me in Hong Kong. And with that interview, I got the job, landed as a private banker. And the first thing they did is they shipped me to Switzerland and trained me the traditional Swiss private banking. That's how I get into my banking career as such.
That's amazing, Anthonia. Super interesting background. Okay, the next thing is I'm just going to extend that thing a little bit more, and hopefully this is going to be applicable to a lot of people in the audience, right? Your story is obviously very amazing, but it's also very linear in the sense that it almost sounds as though you wanted it, it was there for you to get it. I guess in current times, it's not so easy, right? Because a lot of people want certain things, but they can't get it. What kind of lessons, or what kind of takeaways can you impart to the people here who are trying to, to engineer that kind of opportunity for success that you've managed to do? Like, for example, like you said, investment banking, someone said, private banking, and then bam, you became a private banker, and so on and so forth. But for the people, I mean, is there some sort of a skill or what is it that helps people succeed in those changes? Because saying it is very easy, but how does someone put that in practice? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I totally get you. Maybe I make it so easy for everybody that I just being at the right place at the right time, and then it's so easy to transit. In fact, there is a lot more hard work into it. First of all, from a secretary to become a merchant banking executive, it actually takes more than just sheer determination or opportunity prevail. You need to stay on top every 5 steps of anyone who you're working with. You need to put things into perspective, and you need to know how to connect the dots. And because the limited knowledge and educational background I have to work quadruply hard in order to learn every single subject. First of all, I need to improve my English. So I went at night school to trying to learn, go to British Council to learn how to use language and grammar and speaking properly. And then I also need to understand all the banking terms. And in those days, unlike today, banks together with IBF and MAS has set up programs for you guys to learn products, to learn marketing ability, client relationship management, all those things. It is available for you guys. But in those days, there's none of those courses exist. So you either go and learn, study economics or finance or business management. If not, then you have no such exposure. Even you study all those 3 subjects, it does not tie you into the business that you are getting involved into. So what I actually learned from being a merchant banker is to not just looking at the balance sheet, the number, but to trying to find anomaly, things that doesn't gel up, doesn't make sense. So you need to have common sense. You need to have sense of risk. You need to be able to connect the dot and find the missing pieces. And once you have that, then you need to actually put into practice how you can actually apply that particular practicality and knowledge. When you get hit a wall, what do? A lot of us are so afraid of asking, so afraid of showing to other people what you don't know, because you're worrying about people think that you get to the job just by sheer luck or by your look or by your family connections. I don't have any of those fear. I know nothing. And because of that, your humility, your modesty, and your ignorance actually become your motivation and your driver. And you being as a blank sheet of paper, anybody can throw things at you and you can absorb it like a sponge. So your learning curve is huge, but there is nothing to be feared, because the worst is unable to admit yourself you don't know. That is your worst enemy. So that's why I know I don't know anything. So I always go to somebody and say, sorry, this is completely unknown to me. Would you mind to give me some pointer? But I do not anticipate and expect people to tell me A to Z, because if that's the case, you become a burden to that person or to that team. So you need to actually figure out, and that's a way how I approach it. I take out my fingers, 5 of them, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? First of all, you need to ask. Whenever a task being thrown at you, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And once you figure out the why, what am I going to do? What is expected of you? What kind of deliverable you are supposed to give? Then to whom you're doing this for? And to whom that will be the person you have answerable to? And how you're going about it? And when you're supposed to get it done. Once I actually run through in my mind in seconds of time to figure out how much of these questions I'm able to answer. Am I able to answer 50, 60% of it? Or if not, where am I going to plug the gap? Now, in those days, we have no Google. So that's why all the plugging the gap is from your own personal connection, people you know, your own personal resources or references that you can get. But in today's world, you have Google, you have people, your peer who work with you. So in that case, you can garner those information and then say, if I have that and I plug in another 20%, so I have 80% of the information to facilitate me to start working on this task. Then I will start working. And if I hit another 5, 10% and I got stuck, what do? I go to my task giver. Before I even started the work, I have a habit of go back to my task giver and ask the task giver the following question. You're asking me to do this. So I understand the reason why you're asking me to do this, to whom I'm doing it for, what am I supposed to do, where am I supposed to get the information and resources, and when am I supposed to get it done? Have I missed out anything? Because if you ask such question, giving out what you come to know, then the task giver will understand whether you truly understand what you are supposed to do and what you're expected of you. Then if you miss out anything, they can tell you the missing piece. So you got the pointers and then you know where to find it. And if that pointer is so unknown to you, then you will ask for the help. You ask the giver, where am I going to get this information? Can you give me some pointer? And who am I supposed to get this information from? Then once you have all those, then you can start doing the work. And like what I say, once you start doing the work and you realize that you still get stuck, then you have to go back to your task giver and say, I'm stuck in here. Can you help me? How do I actually find the unblocker to unblock the situation? And because the way how I approach every of my tasks, and they can see my thought process, they realize that I think differently from the other people. Because most of us, when we were given something to do, the immediate reaction is you go and start doing the task. But then you realize going through the process, you spend a lot of time figuring out all these questions. And by the time you're supposed to deliver, you're not even halfway there. And then you miss your deadline. You frustrated the people who give you the task. You frustrated your boss, and they see you as an unreliable employee. So in that case, you don't build your own brand. You don't build your own reliability and credibility as a trustworthy colleagues or staff. So that's why that is, I think, one of the major qualities I have that my bosses see me, and they're prepared to take chances on me and risk on me because they know I can be depended on.
That's a very good. As you're speaking, I'm actually writing down some notes that I want to share and summarize to the audience as well later. And Tony, I want to ask you this question that comes up a lot, and I think it also touches on what you have mentioned. Like bosses believing in qualities and so on and so forth. A number of our questions that came in asked about pivoting or moving into wealth management, for example. Obviously, for me as a career advisor, when I talk to banks, banks always ask, does we're looking for RMs, but they have to bring a book, for example, right? The questions that we get very often is, how does one who, number one, don't even have a book, isn't even an RM, or maybe for people who are RMs in different segments, how easy is it for them to move into, let's say, private wealth, for example, or or what kind of skills do you think are necessary, to move into private wealth? And okay, part one is moving from segment consumer banking, let's say, to private banking, and then maybe the second part would be something like someone who's from middle office, wanting to move into a relationship management role. Is that possible, or is that like doomed to fail from the start? I mean, what's your advice for people in this situation or thinking about making that switch? What's your advice to them?
Well, first of all, there's nothing is impossible. It just really depends on how determined you are going to get into it. But before you do that, first of all, you need to do a serious soul searching to figure out who you are, because not everybody is suitable to be in a front row job. Secondly, not everybody is suitable to be in private wealth management, because first of all, you have to figure out what is private banking. Now, if you think private banking is just good salesmanship, which is unfortunately in today's way of how private banks conduct themselves, they are very product driven. And because of that, they require a lot of people who can sell. But the whole thing is selling is not your primary function. Being a good private banker is you are building relationship you're building relationship and trust that you are taking care of someone else's entire life saving, the family wealth. So that is a big responsibility. Just successfully selling a product, it does not equate you as a good relationship manager. So that's why, first of all, who are you? Are you comfortable with interacting with people? Are you prepared to be vulnerable and be a genuine human being? When I say vulnerable and genuine human being is a lot of us, when we go to work, we wear a work face or work mask. That means you want to portray yourself as a professional, that you gain respect from your peers and from your colleagues, from your clients, right? But the thing is that you? If it's not you, you are actually, every day you're wearing another you to go and work. So who can, if I were a client, I want to build a genuinely trusting relationship. If I cannot peaceful that particular mask to understand who you are, how can I feel that I can trust you with my life money? That is the first thing. So you have to be prepared to get people to know you. And you have to let people know that you are just a human being like them. You are not invincible. You are not an expert in everything, because no one of us can be. And in fact, private bankers are jack of all trades. They are generalists, because if they need specialists, you can pull your colleagues from the specialist team to support you. You don't need to be a specialist, but you need to be able to have a wide range of knowledge and a huge amount of common sense and a big heart that you care to be in the right function and be in the private wealth. So if you are a very shy person, you think that you cannot be a private banker, strangely, shy person doesn't mean you cannot be a private banker. If you are a person who cares, you actually be able to build a relationship, even as a shy person, you still can be a very good private banker. So that's why I remember in my career, I met this Egyptian woman in London when I was working there. She is one of the shyest, most introvert person that I ever seen. But she had this quiet confidence that exuded on her when you talk to her, that you feel this person is very trustworthy. So you automatically, she build that bond with her client without much effort. You don't have to be outgoing, flamboyant, dynamic to build that. In fact, if you're like that, sometimes client will think you're too much for me. I don't need such a loud person to be around me. So that's why we have so many different types of human beings in the world, and every one of them have created a wealth on their own right. They will not need an opposite personality to go and tell them how to, take charge of their money. They need somebody who can actually assimilate to their own personality and thinking and help them through the journey how to manage your wealth. And I think that is really critical for each one of you who are thinking about going to private wealth management, to consider first of all, do you have the right personality? Are you prepared to care to the degree that your client's problem is your problem? I remember at one stage in my career, my boss told me, don't let your client's problem become your problem. That is meaning saying you don't care about what's happening going on with the client. So to give you an example, how much I care about my client's problem. One of my clients, actually, his wife, typically most of the clients are male, and they tend to be the one who take care of the family financial affair. So this male client of mine, I get to know his wife. Now, since we're talking about female and male situation, I just add a side point for those one who are women who are concerned about whether they would be given a good opportunity to be in this career. Being a woman, you have advantage, especially in private banking, because if you look around most of the private banking employees, I would say 80% are women. And those senior private bankers are 89, if not 90% are women, because women has an advantage over men in this particular segment of the business, because being a private banker, you need to multitask. Men are not very good at that, I'm sorry. And not only that, women are thicker skinned than men. You'll be surprised why I say that. Because when a client gets frustrated, whatever the reason in life, in business, or even they're losing money in the financial market, they are in bad mood. So they sometimes, and subconsciously, some of them consciously, taking it out of the banker. So they would say, for example, if you manage to tell a client to buy a product and they lose money, they will scream at you. Some of them even abuse you. And men find it very insulting. It hurt them so bad. They tend to become either very aggressive or they become very demotivated. While a woman, yes, we have the same emotion. Don't get me wrong. Woman is just like another human being. But there's one thing we don't have, our ego that men normally has. The man's ego would be hurt so much by a client screaming at them, while the woman would, okay, we are always being screamed at one way or the other when we grow up. So in that case, we just bury that emotion and trying to find our maternal instinct to trying to nurture and pacify the client like we're trying to pacify our husband or our children. So because of that, we are very good at handling this situation. And that's why women has an edge. So don't don't try to play your victim card as a woman that you are actually not given equal opportunity in banking job. In fact, this is where women excel. So use this opportunity and figure out where your niche. Don't try to compete in the area that you would not have a niche. Full stop. And women should not be a victim, especially in Asia. I cannot say, especially in Singapore and Hong Kong, women are superior than men because we have a lot more opportunity than most of the men in here. What we choose is up to us. It's not because we were not given. So that's basically addressing the point. I think one of the questions from some of the audience is about being woman in the industry. How does it work? Now, to get back to your question, what exactly other than personality that you need to require to consider in this career? The second thing you need to require of you is your attitude. You need to understand that you are in a job that there's forever new thing thrown at you. You will not know everything. And don't try to believe in this bullshit that you are an expert. Be it your client brushing your ego or your colleague or your industry people making you feel that you are an expert. Let me tell you, in my entire 40 years of my career, whatever you think you're an expert, that is the thing and that's the point where you fall and fail. Because none of us are an expert. If we are so expert, we do not need to work. We might as well become the private banking client because we're so wealthy. Because you are so expert, you should know everything and you will pick all the wonderful stuff, enter the market in the right place and doing all the right thing. Believe me, your luck, your life fortune will make your life career as up and down as much as the financial market. So that's why with luck, share hard work and determination, continue education and study and learning, and be humble, you will have a long-term career. If not, then you will just go in and out like a swinging door. Because that's why I've seen a lot of people keep on changing jobs. Now, the other thing, talking about changing job, when I was young, like many of you, we all being led to believe if you stay in the job, you will get passed over by new hire. People come in with higher, better title, higher salary, and getting more than you do. I used to think that way when I was young. Then I realized that those people who stay behind for the bank for 10, 15 years, how come they get to have the best book of business? Because all those people who left the bank, you think that they can take away this client with them, like what you mentioned about most banks are hiring an RM with a book of business. Let me tell you the truth. If you have 100 clients, when you change job, if you're just like a normal private banker, like what I say, a good product sales, you don't build deep relationship with this client. You don't actually care enough to make them feel that you are a trusted person. Honestly, the chances for you to move this book out from that one bank to your new job is only maximum, the most successful one is 30%. That means out of 100 clients, you can only move 30 clients. And even the 30 clients that will come with you are not necessarily going to stay with you for the rest of your career in that next job. So that's why it's just like a rolling stone. You never pick up any moss. So the more you change, the more clients you lose, the more credibility you lose. That's why I always, when I'm hiring people, I look at the CV. If those ones who change job every 2 years, I basically put it aside. I would not consider. This is basically how important it is. So to build a long-term career, you need to spend time. You need to actually ride through difficult time and good time with your client, and you need to actually build your own foundation. So I remember when I get to my mid-career, I realized this point. I decided to stay on that job. Even at that time, my boss are terrible. Some of my colleagues are terrible. The bank is making so much changes. They even go through merger and acquisition. I stuck through it. And I stuck through with that job for 10 years. And the only reason why I changed my job is when I realized the bank is no longer a place and a platform to facilitate all my clients' needs. And because of that, for the client's sake, I need to change to find a platform that can facilitate my client. Not that because I want to get higher salary, better title. It's purely because of my client. I changed my job in order to facilitate their needs. That is something I don't think anybody would ever tell me they have done that. Okay, so, and that also explains, even after I had done that, when I left the private banking segment in the bank, I started my own private wealth management firm now. And because of that, you will be surprised what happened. When I left that job, I only prepared 10% of my client will follow me when I'm on my own because I'm not an institution. I don't have the brand of a bank. But you know, I have 110% of my client following me. The reason is because for the past 30 years, I've been looking after them multi-generations wealth. Even when I change job because of them. So that client know I don't do it for myself. I do it for them. So when I set up on my own, they say, perfect. I need you to be out there looking out for me. So I won't be subject to all these force selling, product selling, pitch talk, because you know exactly what I need and I don't need people to sell me anything. That's why the important thing for you to consider why you want to change, go into private wealth management. You have to look at who you are, whether you're suitable for the industry. Do you have the right attitude? Do you care enough about your clients that over your own personal interests? And if you have all those, yes, you can go ahead to consider it. Now, then the third part of your question, if I'm in the mid office, or maybe I'm not in the private banking or even not a banker, can I get into private banking? First of all, it is a very harsh world now because there's so many people want to be in private banking. And the bank tend to look at what you say, people who can bring profitable business. If I were a corporate banker, investment banker, or even consumer banker, are you able to get into private banking? Sure. What you need to do is you basically need to convince your prospective employer, I may not have a book of business from the private banking perspective, but I have a portfolio of client relationship I have built through my own career now, which I can nurture. And with the right kind of guidance and mentoring to nurture them into private banking clients. If I were a corporate banker, you know the owner of the business. And if they are able to run the business, they should definitely have private wealth that could be actually convert into a private banking client. If I were an investment banker, you tend to also dealing with corporate. And this corporate owner would definitely have money, especially those ones who can engage in investment banking. They must be big company or big key executive of this company. They can have actually very good high earning salary, right? So that's why they can be converted into private banking. If I were a retail banker, you also encounter wealthy individuals who have a lot of saving in their bank account. So in that case, you can identify them and basically, and also treat them as your own potential book of business. But remember, your client is not your commodity. If you think that you treated your client as a commodity, you shift them from one place to the other, that shows them no respect. They would not like it. So you would not go to saying the client, I'm going to change job and become a private banker. Please come and support me. It didn't work. You need to tell your client, oh, I'm actually thinking about changing my career into private banking. The reason being is because I find that in the part of I'm banking now, I tend to do things in a very corporate level. But with my personality, I care a lot about what my clients' well-being, financial well-being, mental well-being is about. And that's why I want to basically be able to extend that care into a function that I can perform and utilize it. And that's why I want to go into private wealth. So what do you think about? Do you think I'm suitable to that? So you're asking for their career opinion. If they are actually have a relationship with you, they say, oh, yeah, why not? You know, go ahead. And by that, you have his endorsement. The next conversation you have with him is updating him whether you're able to get a job, or if he's already a private banking client, your client, you can ask him, do you mind to refer me so that I will be able to perhaps get a stepping stone into a potential job opportunity? The reason why is because if a client introduced to the bank, there is a potential candidate. You already cut through 1,000 other people's application, because a bank would look into this client's credibility, and if the client is substantial, they would be happily actually entertaining the client's request. So in that case, you will have a better chance than the other people. And even though you don't have a book, but because it's a client who referred you, you actually already typically look like you have a book because of this client. So that is one way for you to get yourself into. Now, I'm giving you a shortcut because this is not many people will share with you, because I figured out that is how it happened. Why? Because when in my last banking job, I was not intended to join that bank. It was because of my biggest client who actually get upset with the current bank I'm working in and tell me, Antonia, you have to get out of that bank because that bank cannot facilitate what I'm doing. Then I said to the client, I say, well, where should I go? He said, I set you up with a meeting with my other private bank. So that's why I was being set up by my client to get interview with the other bank that eventually I joined. And because that client has $300 million AUM under my management, I'm basically getting a single client book, which is so big that many other RM can accumulate. Forget about I have the other clients. So that's why you'll be amazed if you're getting things done right. Your client could be your best advocate. And that's why you have to understand whether you're investment banking, merchant banking, private bank, consumer banking, corporate banking, your client is very important. And don't just do it on the corporate way. Business is business. That I'm not asking you to commingle your private life with your business, because there is a line to draw. And you have to be careful how to balance that. Just like a woman in a family household how you balance your mother-in-law with your husband. And don't try to put your husband in the middle. That is exactly what you're doing. A private banker is absolutely like a wife. You have to balance the bank's need for you to meet your number while you're meeting your client's need. When these two cannot be aligned, you know what happened? Divorce will happen. And that's exactly what happened to me when I was in my last job. So, and I divorced the bank and I set up my own. That means I'm not going to become unfortunately, the incorrect way is saying that I am not going to turn away men and going to with a woman. I don't mean that. I mean that you have to find a way to become independent and be able to balance the both sides of the need. If there is a way to choose and that there's no other way to choose, you have to make the break and you have to choose what speaks to your heart. That's basically it. So if you're in the mid office and back office and you think, I want to go into the front line and I want to be in private banking, is it possible? Of course it's possible. In my entire career, when I try to hire an assistant, I always look at the people from the back office and the mid office. Those ones who have been giving me good support in the past, who have a service mentality, who care, who does not take things personally when they are being screamed at. They look at the job and then perform it with a full-hearted dedication. Those are the people I pick first. And I have actually advocated this approach in the last few banks I'm working with. So there is a culture. The bank will accept internal transfer. If you are able to network with the right RM, senior RM, or department head, you basically network with them by basically show how do you network with them. When they call you up, they have a problem with back office. You have to, extend your assistance and not just doing the basic. Like most of the back office people, the first word they come from them, you ask them on anything, cannot. That is no go. If you say cannot, and always come up with a rejection statement, or this is not my fault, so that's all I can do, or quoted the department head or the RM with all the procedure that the bank would prevail them in doing the job. Instead, you would just say, I see there is a problem in here. Let me see how I can help you. Let me see what I can do to assist you or put you in the right type of person. That statement will go so deep into my heart that I will never forget you. And when I need help, I know you will be there for me. And in that case, you will be the perfect person. I want you to join my team because you have the perfect mentality to help to resolve the client's problem. So that's why the mid office, the back office person, you need to start building your own credibility to be a dependable, reliable, and trustworthy colleague to your stakeholders, which is your internal colleagues and your external colleague counterparty you're dealing with. And all the people I have hired, 90% come from the back office and the mid office. I want to give these people the opportunity. Like what happened to me when I was young, I was not given an opportunity, but because I was in the right place at the right time, but also because I stick my neck out. Because when I see my boss agonizing, that realize that he cannot meet his timeline, he has a problem at hand, I come forth, I say, I can possibly be your solution. And what did he do? When somebody giving you a lifeline when you're drowning, you will grab it, right? So once you being grabbed, you get the opportunity to show who you are and what quality you have. You're opening yourself up with an opportunity that nobody will ever give it to you. That is how life is truly be. It's nothing to do with just job, in anything in life. So I think I answered that question.
Very well, Antonia. Very, very good. I mean, it resonates a lot with the advice that the career advisors also give. A lot of the things that you say, you're actually doing our jobs for us. So, very appreciative. And at least, it kind of backs us up when we work with our candidates. I mean, okay, so the next question is just really nuts and bolts. When I listen to you and the way you talk, you really sound like an old soul, like, traditional, taking care. It's not just about business, but it's about taking care of entire family's wealth and preservation and longevity and stuff like that. I wonder whether or not you can tackle this question. And this question is like two parts. And the second part comes from sort of like a question that was submitted to us. And basically the question is, when you think about the evolution, these 40 years, or 30 years, for example, in wealth management, are there any skills, apart from the normal ones that we just talked about, that are like super valued and super hot, like right now, that maybe last time, didn't exist, or not even apparent? And so that's part one. And then the second part is, again, a question came in about, technology, for example. Now, is it helpful or is it hurtful? Yeah, I mean, obviously technology helps businesses to move faster, transact faster, but then also technology is also responsible for elimination of jobs and so on and so forth. So the second part of the question is, how does someone work hand in hand with technology, to reap the benefits of it, and not fall prey to losing a job because of it? Is that something that you think you can answer?
Sure. Well, in addition to those qualities I just mentioned earlier, how to get into this particular segment of the banking business, there are certain skills which actually come into different parts. First of all is to groom yourself. How do you groom yourself? If you are a young person, in today's, a lot of you, your parents are very well looking after you. So well that you do not need to do a lot of things. For example, you don't need to do cooking. You may not even need to iron your shirt. You may not even need to tidy your room. Now, my first question to you, if you don't know how to take care of yourself, how can you take care of someone else's significant amount of wealth? That's the first question I ask any university graduate when I'm doing career talk in NUS, NTU, and SMU. And I said, for those ones who did not have to take care of themselves, not even packing their own school bag, please walk out of the room, because I don't want to see your face, because I will not trust you with my money. Full stop. So first of all, you need to start become independent. Don't let your parents pamper you. Don't let your maid have to deal with everything for you. You have to start learning how to do things for yourself. Because think about it, one day you may not be as comfortable. Your parents may not be around, and you would have to do things yourself. You'll be lost. So are you going to depend on your future husband or future wife? And what happens if you have children? You have to start taking care of them. And if you don't know how to take care of yourself, how can you take care of them? All these things is related. This simple skill set, it is good for your life and good for your career. Second thing is, for those ones who never go to supermarket, or they only go to supermarket to buy their own drink and never look at other stuff because the other stuff will be shopped by my parents or maid or anybody, you need to go to the supermarket and buy things for yourself and for the family. Why? I'll give you an example. I would ask you, Adrian, when you buy shaving foam, which brand you will buy? I'm not asking you to advertise in here. I'm just asking you a question. Which brand you normally buy? Gillette? Or, yeah, Gillette, right? So Gillette is a company also listed in the stock exchange, right? So what happens if your client buying you're recommending your client to buy Gillette? Are you going to regurgitate what all the research analysts have given to you, or the bank's sales pitch have given to you? Or you basically tell the client, hey, Gillette is a very famous brand. I know anybody and everybody that buy Gillette, including myself. So they are consumer product, fast moving consumer product. That's why it is actually a stable. And because of that, it is, if you're thinking about something more stable and is not as cyclical, then you may be thinking about buying Gillette. Does it actually sound more powerful than you're trying to regurgitate the sales pitch from the bank and also from the research team, right? So that's why if you do go to supermarket and pay attention what you buy and looking at the price point, why there is different brand of different price point, and why do I choose to buy Gillette even though they're more expensive than the other brand, it tells you something. That is the way. One of the other skill set is I actually use a phrase called start living a real life. Do not live in a life that you think is real because everybody is doing that, because that's not real. Because not everybody born, and in many parts of the world of the country, a lot of people are in poverty. They have no maid, no parents look after them. So for those one who want to save the wealth, the younger one, this is even more important for you to realize. Also, because for you to identify which is a company who have harmful practice and all these things. If I go into supermarket, you figure who are using most plastic, who are using most of the printing material, hitting the tree. That is important. The next thing is, a lot of us watch TV this day. Don't just watch Korean dramas. Don't just watch all these BTS singing. You should start spending some time watching Discovery Channel, Discovery Travel Channel, National Geographic. I actually learned about certain countries' history. I even watch Channel News Asia program, Talking Points, or Family Affairs, and all those things to understand different culture and different people's take. What is the issue that concern them, and what is going on in the world, from technology to science and everything. So when clients talk to you about things, especially if they come from different fields, I have clients who are actually bioscientists who created the heart valve to be implanted in the heart to save people, who are in business on garment, who making garment from different parts of the world, in some of the world that actually can have slave labors. I have clients who are actually in jewelry business, who actually I have clients in all kinds of industry, in technology. So that's why you can have a decent relationship with your client by having conversation. So much so that I actually accumulated my knowledge in terms of travel, in terms of sometimes you cannot travel, like COVID-19. Then the TV become your traveling. So you can get to read the other country's information and knowledge. So study about history, culture, and everything. I have clients over 25 countries, come from 25 countries all over the world. How do I get to understand their culture if I don't live with them? It's because I watch National Geographic, I watch Discovery Channel, I read about them. So that's why this accumulating of common knowledge would help you to be able to connect to your client. And this is one of the most important skill set. Now, the other skill set is for those one who are Chinese, who does not speak Mandarin, you're doom and gloom. I'm sorry. Okay. The world's most wealthiest people these days are mainly come from mainland China. Okay. So if you don't speak Mandarin, you don't have much chance. Okay. And not only that, shame on you as Chinese. I'm sorry if I offended you. Okay. But I really mean that. For those one who are from different parts of the world, you're Indian, you're Muslim, or you are other European, you have to speak your own language. Not only speaking, you need to read and write. And it's not too late to learn Chinese, guys. Trust me. Okay. So not only that, you need to have one other language other than your own mother tongue. You need to speak English well, of course, right? And communicate properly. But if you see that yourself to be able to branch out into a culture that you actually like, for example, if you like going to Thailand or you like to go to Indonesia for holiday, but you know these two are also developing wealthy countries going to become wealthy. There's a lot more wealth creating there. You may want to adopt one of those language so that in the future, you're not just dealing with your own market. You're able to branch out yourself to other different markets. For your information, I have clients from entire Asia. Entire Asia is a huge, right? I mean, from Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all those countries I have clients from. I have clients from Europe, France, Italy, Germany, UK. I have clients from Middle East, from Dubai to Bahrain to Kuwait. Can you imagine? I have to understand so many cultures. And I have North American clients as well. And I have a book of international clients, which nobody can compare in the industry, because most of the private bank is segment based on single market. You're either in Indonesia or you're either in Singapore. Yes, you can have your own comfort zone. But remember, we are talking about creating skill that can actually prepare you for the future. Because once you cocoon yourself in certain country, you can have saturation. If that country went into a difficult economic situation, you have no clients and you have no prospect. So in that case, what you're going to do? You got stuck. So that's why you need to be able to get yourself exposure to different market, and the market have a future of growth. So I was lucky because when I get into different job, I get a posting assignment to work in different countries. So I work in Europe, I work in Switzerland, I work in France and London, I work in Japan, I work in US. And because of that, when I was working in there, I created my book of business from scratch. And because of this creation, today I build a global portfolio of clients. So if there is one part of the world get into trouble, I still have the other part of the world's client to sustain my viability. So with COVID-19, everybody suffer, but I don't suffer because all my clients under my management has been unscathed, majority with the portfolio intact. Their suffering is mainly from the business. So in that case, what do? I create a portfolio in such a way that I can use my portfolio return to help to sustain my client's cash flow problem. So I can help to bridge their problem. And my clients say, you're the only banker or investment advisor that be able to bail me out in this time. And because of that, they forever grateful. They stick with me for generation for that reason. We have gone through Asian crisis, global financial crisis, now is COVID-19. Okay, so that's why these skill sets are enormously important. Technology is not supposed to be fear. Technology is supposed to be an enabler. Because with technology, you can Google, you can type email, you can use video conferencing if you cannot go and see a client. So like what happened to me during the COVID-19, I cannot go and see my client. So what do? I actually video myself by using my mobile phone to have a simple clips to tell my client, your portfolio are safe. We are looking after you. Don't worry. If you need my help, anytime, just give me a call. I'm just a phone call away. That actually gives the client the kind of comfort to know that you are reachable. So the Zoom call, whatever it is, you need to acquire that kind of technological advancement to support you. So technology is not supposed to be scary. Now, the other thing is very important. In private wealth management, in many industries, be it a lawyer, accountant, even doctor, and banker in general, a lot of process can be computerized, can be automated, can be replaced by robot and by technology. But there's one thing they cannot replace, is building relationship. Private banking is all about building relationship, human interaction, and trust that you build. So that's why it is a career with longevity with human being. In fact, the older you are, the better. Age is not a disadvantage in private banking. A client, if they are, most of the clients who have money are on average, the age is 45 and above. If you are a private banker or 20 something, you're trying to tell the client you know how to manage the wealth better than the way how they created it. Do you think that they would be convinced? No. In fact, I remember when my co-founder of my business, who actually talked to one of the clients that I'm managing who have multi-billion-dollar assets with multi-private banks, he tend to feel that the client doesn't trust him. And I actually talked to my client and say, what is the issue? He said, well, because I look at him, he's the age of my son. So if I don't trust my son with my money, why should I trust him? I don't believe in expert, as I told you earlier, because he lived long enough to know there is no expert in the world. So that's why, and I told my guy, please be patient, keep at it, keep communicating, don't shy away and don't avoid talking to him. You have to start building up. Out of the blue, couple of years down the road, the client say, my son is coming to Singapore. Can I ask him to meet your co-founder? Because they are same age, so they can talk to each other. So they went out and they talked. Afterwards, the son went back to meet the client in Hong Kong and say, and then the client start changing his mind. He actually say, oh, I would like to hear from Leo what his opinion about investment. So that's how they started building the credibility in the relationship, because it just takes time. You just have to be comfortable and don't try to be so cocky just because you're a Harvard University graduate, you are top of the class, and you think that the bank give you a title, call yourself a managing director of some expert thing. Please put that away. You need to be grounded. You need to feel that you are really doing something right for your client. So that's why modesty and humility is very important. Age is not an issue, but if you let your age to be your hurdle, then it is your own for to make. No one else make it for you. The older you are, hopefully you get more wiser and more mature. You actually have better life experience that you can handle your client's situation better. Because sometimes clients have crisis. You heard about midlife crisis. You also heard about men also have menopause. So not just women have menopause, men have menopause. But if you're not living long enough to know about all these things happening, let me give you a story how it happened. I was on the plane flying from Singapore to Hong Kong, 3 hour and 45 minutes flight. So after reading all the other stuff, I picked up a women's magazine, which is not usual for me because I don't normally read women's magazine. I actually tend to read text journal because I like to get myself attuned to what's happening in the tax world so that it affects my client's investment and their personal situation. So I read this women's magazine, and then there is a subject called menopause, and I'm on the age going into menopause, so I need to know what's happening to me. So I read the menopause and I know what happened, and I test it and I tick. Oh, I'm into menopause. Okay, so then I flip back and they say the term is called andropause, means male menopause. Male menopause is is unlike women. We don't have that much symptom for men. So, but then the men suddenly lose some kind of confidence of the ability to attract the opposite sex, female, that means. So what they do, they like to start flirting. When they're 50 plus or 60 plus, they start flirting with younger women. And when they get the attention from the younger woman, they thought, I must be still attractive. So my mojo is still there. So that's why I'm confident. But they have no idea is because by that time you have better financial power. A lot of younger women are attracted to you because they look at somebody who can give them the kind of comfort. Now, I'm generalizing things here, so please do not take it offended, because I don't mean to offend any one of you. And because of that, so the men sometimes confuse this attention as love. It's not, okay? And because of that, I have one of my clients' wife come to tell me, my husband is having an affair with somebody. I'm going to sue the bastard and divorce him. Please tell me how much money he has in his account. As a private banker, you cannot get involved into this, and you cannot tell the client's wife how much money he has because she is not your contractual party. So, but you want to show you care. So how are you going to do? That comes into my handy reading of the article. So then I asked my client, how old are you? Of course, I know how old she is. She is 58. I say, how old is your husband? 62. I say, have you gone through your menopause? She said, yeah, of course. And is your husband standing by you and still loving you at that time? Oh, yes, he is a darling at that time, but not now. He is having an affair. So I say, you do realize men at 62 years old is the time for them to have their menopause. And they may think by flirting with a younger woman would give them some kind of comfort. Maybe if you still love your husband, whom you have married for 38 years, cannot be one day is darling, next day is an asshole. Sorry of my language here, okay? So why don't you actually sit him down without any family member or going to a resort in Bintan and then spend a weekend with him and do a heart talk and saying to him, what's happening to you this day? I feel that you are not yourself. Why don't you share with me? So I did that to my husband, my client's wife. She did exactly what I did. She said, you're the only person who tell me in a very rational manner how to actually look at this thing. All my girlfriend tell me I divorced the bastard. Okay, so I said, okay, fine. So 3 months later, I met them up. They were holding hands with each other and very lovely. So then the wife told me, Antonia, you're right. After I talked to him, I realized that he has andropause. So I took him to see a doctor. So now he's in hormone treatment. So we are now very fine. Thank you so much. You saved our marriage. I'm not just saving their marriage. I'm also saving their bank account. Because if they split up, they will no longer become a criteria client of mine. So that's why you think about it, what the skill set I have, all the knowledge I just learned from reading an article on the plane, then translate it into my work, how I can save the relationship of two couples, which make me feel tremendously happy, but also I save my own business. So that is an example how you can make yourself future ready by enabling yourself with all kinds of knowledge, and you continuously making yourself as an interesting person. Technology is an enabler. Relationship cannot be replaced by technology. So you have a long-term career if you want to go into relationship management business in private banking.
That's I mean, I was just as always, your answers are just so interesting. But Antonia, I'm just gonna maybe push you a little bit on what you just said. I mean, as you go into your 40s and 50s, you get more gray hairs. The more I don't know, respected you are in the wealth management area, perhaps, versus a 25-year-old RM. But how about people who are not in wealth management, who are in the 40s and the 50s? Because as you know, one of the struggles that we have as a career center is that when we work with people, right, maybe they get made redundant in their 40s and 50s through no fault of their own. It's just a downsizing, and they're not in wealth, for example, in which 40s and 50s is actually not a good place to be. We, from my humble opinion, just my own as well, just a disclaimer to everybody, my own opinion is that we still operate in a very hierarchical environment whereby analysts are 20s, associates are late 20s, VPs are made in their 30s, MDs are made in their late 30s to 40s. You have someone out there who's not in wealth, doesn't have the relationships, and the gray hairs all of a sudden become a bad thing per se, prevent them from finding a job. How does one in that position get back into the saddle again? Okay, let me, before I stop there, also taking in mind that these people may be very, 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 very open to taking lower jobs. I was a VP, but in my career, in my time of life, I'm okay with a lower job. But the receiving party may not be so open, because again, hierarchy, where do I fit this guy? He's 40s and 50s, I can't put him as an associate even though he says he wants to, right? And then all of a sudden this guy then becomes the victim of something that's totally out of his control. Do you have any advice, or is this like a losing battle? I mean, is there any way that you think that people can overcome this kind of situation? Because this is a situation that we see, very, very often in the career center, and myself and my colleagues.
Well, you're absolutely spot on in the situation that we are facing in current world. There is a lot of financial institutions are still, their HR department are very structured and very stuck into their way. Unfortunately, what you have talked about is reality, and I have seen. Perhaps I'm the only exception, I hope, not the only exception, in the industry that I actually make a point to hire older, mid-career change people. In fact, I just hired one person who is now in his 56 years old, and he was ex-investment banker, but he lost his job and went through bankruptcy. And that's why he cannot get back into banking industry, because you're not being treated as a fit and proper person. But what I did is I looked at his past work experience, and I asked 6 questions, which check out his attitude and his personality. I find that he's a good fit because he shared my value. He shared my vision as how life should be. So because of that, I actually offer him an internship. And while I'm offering him an internship, so to test him out and for him to test out whether he's suitable for wealth management industry. So I gave him an internship at 56 years old. Can you imagine? Did you remember there's a movie from Robert De Niro as called The Interns?
I did.
Yeah, that's exactly the approach I take. And because of his experience, in fact, it helps me enormously when he get on board to do something which I am not perhaps very familiarized with. That is not an area that I have a lot of information knowledge. And he helps me. And because of that, I actually advocate to MAS to allow me, because of his bankruptcy, I can't even hire him as an intern to start with. But I managed to convince MAS to look through the situation and realize his bankruptcy has been a long history past, and he's just on the verge of getting out of it. And I basically push him and the MAS to basically look at it from a different angle. And MAS is actually open-minded enough to allow me to give him the blessing to do work which is not regulated activity. So in that case, I don't breach any of the rules and code of conduct. So, but then he can help me to do information gathering, research information for me, so that it actually helped to release a lot of my workload and burden. And but through that, he also get to utilize his past skill set and knowledge to apply on something that it can help to rebuild his confidence level, and also for him to have a window into what wealth management is about. So see whether it is a suitable career that he can pursue. So the good news is, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, he can get out of his bankruptcy. Then I can offer him a permanent employment. That is what I'm trying to share with you all. Those ones who feel that you are in the dead end, you just have to keep looking. I am hiring people. I'm not looking for an RM. I have no set criteria other than the quality that I have been talking about just now in my career advice to all of you. If you're suitable for that, please look out for that particular job opening and write to me. Now, I'm not trying to use this opportunity to save my headhunting costs. No, I actually don't believe in hiring people from headhunting, because I believe in the good people should actually use a common value, because headhunters tend to overblow your CV and tend to mislead the prospective employer to wrongly build an expectation. So by the time the employer meets you, they realize that you're not what the headhunter said about you. They get disappointed. So you never get a proper job. You want people to hire you because of who you are, genuinely what you have. That is what they're looking for. Not necessarily you have the 100% relevant industry experience, but what your skill set is so invaluable that they prepare to look through that you don't have the industry relevance. That is me. I look at everybody and I prepare to give people opportunity on that basis. So the other question is, your past title, whether you're a VP or you're a managing director, you get redundant. Don't get hung up on your title. Title means nothing. I remember my clients told me, there's so many managing director. Do they have one in charge of clean toilet as well? They're talking about the banking industry. And if this is how clients feel, then you understand your managing director title is weight so much less than what you think it would be. Now, of course, for those ones who graduate from university, when you bump into all your schoolmates, they all carrying some kind of big title and you feel so belittled. But let me tell you, when I hire fresh graduate interns, to basically ask them to internship with me for this, I only offer internship for 6 months to 1 year. I don't give people 3 months internship because it's useless. It is like a preschool. I don't want kindergarten. I don't want kindergarten kids. I want people who genuinely want to do work and make use of their own time to do something constructive. So for that 6 months internship, the knowledge that we have built for them is equivalent to a VP level in most of the bank. So when they go to the other bank and apply for a job, they were amazed how much they have done in a 6 months internship with me compared to those VP in the bank for 5 years. Not that I'm belittle those banks people who have been in the MD or VP's job, because banks tend to do things on a very compartmental level. That means if your job role is in settlement, you only do settlement. And even settlement, it is divided into 5 or 6 other steps. So you only know 1 step and you don't do the other 4 steps. So in that case, you're expert of that 1 step, but you don't know the other picture. And if you don't connect the dot, you have no knowledge. Your knowledge is incomplete. So that's why it is, unfortunately, is the way how the bank works. The reason why is because they cannot afford to have one person uplifted them and hold them hostage. That's why they decided to dice and divided the job in such a way they do not allow people to hold them hostage. But that is not the way to build knowledge for people. That's not the way how to build usefulness of a person. So that's why I don't believe in that. And I build every of my colleagues, no matter what function they get into, they have to learn from A to Z, and they have to apply what they learn. So that's why, forget about the title. If you're prepared to get into a new industry, you have to prepare to start from scratch. That means you compromise from pay, you compromise from title, but you are actually taking this as an investment you make for yourself. You're building a career, you're not getting a job. A job is you do 9 to 5, you get paid, you go home. A career is you need to invest and your employer have to invest on you. which will be for long term. You can do for the rest of your life. That's called career. So don't confuse job as career.
Antonia, I mean, I think that's good to know that people like you exist. And obviously we wish more people like you exist. But you know, no BS. The truth is, like for the people who are out there and they don't meet folks like you who are open-minded, is it essentially game over because they have to go through this hoops, you know, HR, and you know, is there anything they can do, or is just like forget?
No, not necessary. Let me tell you, Singapore government has been advocating for companies to rehire those people who have been either retired or have, especially women who are actually went home and raised a family, and also those ones who may be redundant because of the age, right? So because of that, Singapore government has an initiative. So use that platform either through NTUC or MOM, because they do have a job site posting in there for those people like that. In that case, and become fearless, go and apply and go and feel for what's existing in the market and see who are the people who are willing to take on you. I started hiring flexi worker. That means people who can do part-time, my mother, from 2008 already, before all this flexi work thing was actually broadcast and being supported by the community. I started back then. And today, I still open to hire people on that kind of structure. As long as these people know that you do not just do a job of flexi work, that's why you clock in, clock out like that. You carry the job into your heart and you produce and deliver. And how you manage it or what you support, open up and discuss with your employer and trying to find a way to meet each other's expectation. Because I think a lot of you tend to feel, oh, I better not say, I may upset somebody. Honestly, if you don't ask, nobody knows what you're thinking. I cannot second guess what's in your brain. I cannot second guess what you're going through in terms of your family situation. If you speak to me, if I'm a caring employer, I have a heart, especially a lot of banks and big organizations, they have this HR policy to take care of the staff and be caring. Then hold them, walk the talk. Don't just say and don't walk the talk, because a lot of bank talk, do they walk? You know. If they don't, you know they're not the employer you want to work with. And it makes your life easier because you know who you're working with, okay? If you prepare to work for a company like that, then you prepare to suffer and sacrifice, because that is the choice you have to make. So that's why there is no end to that. To answer your story, your question, whether it is going to be the end for these people, no. There are many ways to get yourself ahead of the other. For example, today there is LinkedIn, right? There is Google, there is Facebook. You can actually find out the organization, research about them, look at their hiring policy, look at what kind of jobs is possibly maybe available in that organization. Use your LinkedIn, find out who's the boss or the department head of these people, write directly to them. And do not send in a standard template CV. Let university teach you your academic achievement, your past career, and please try not to do more than 2 pages. If best is 1 page. And not only that, do not just send in CV without a cover note. Your cover note is not about, I'm here to apply for your job. Please consider me. No, you have to say something that attracts the other person. You have to show your quality, like what I have mentioned earlier. Why should I look at you compared to the other people? What quality I'm looking at is the right attitude. Are you prepared to go beyond what you're tasked to do to add value to the organization? If you are not prepared to do that, you only want to do 9 to 5 job. Sorry, please don't apply to my company, because I'm looking for somebody who prepared to add value to my company. And I want to look for somebody who embrace my company culture and my value system. If you are not prepared to embrace my company culture and value system, please also do not apply. But if you are able to single out all these key points, and then also to say what kind of skill sets you have beyond your academic achievement that you feel it is applicable to the job that you're applying, you're on the top of the pile. Okay, and the age is irrelevant. I will not look at your age first to be the selection criteria. I will look at these few points to be the one who actually I choose. And because of that, you already actually bypass a lot of hurdle that you set it out from a traditional custom point of view, or you yourself put it into your own path. So don't let it be your own hurdle. Let it be your advantage. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthonia.
Yeah.
I'm cognizant of the time, so I just wanted to make sure that we have some time to answer some of the audience questions. You know, I covered some of the audience questions already by asking you those things. I see a couple of things coming up. Daphne tells me that there's a lady, is there Xin who wants to ask a question live? Xin, can we unmute Xin and Xin, you can ask Anthonia a question? Hi, Xin. Can we unmute her? Xin, you're muted.
Yeah, Xin, you can, this is Daphne, the host for this session. You can actually unmute your mic if you want to actually ask a question.
If there's some issue, Cindy, maybe you can type in the question in the Q&A box. If there's an issue with your mic, perhaps. While we're waiting, Cindy, I hope you can hear me. While we're waiting, I'm just going to also look at the Q&A questions. Antonio, I don't know whether he's seeing it. We have 2 questions from Alex and Edward. I think we kind of answered them somehow already. So Alex was saying that there are not enough jobs for senior management staff who have been retrenched. So I think maybe you were to cover that by saying being nimble, and if you're looking for that level, same level may be a bit difficult, but if you're willing to change your mindsets, then maybe there'll be opportunities that exist for yourself if you still want to carry on being productive hopefully that kind of answers your question, Alex, if you're still around. Yeah. And for Edward, how to get a job in private banking without banking experience, I think we also kind of covered that as well to a certain extent. Yeah. I think after this session, if you feel that the questions were not answered perhaps in the way that you wanted, or you have some follow-up questions, please direct them to us. Daphne is going to give you an email address so that we can try to get those answers, even if we had to forward it to Anthonia for those answers. And I'm sure she's going to be very happy. Cindy, are you having any luck? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Do you want to type your question in the Q&A box? Uh-oh.
She seems like she's still being mute.
Yeah, she looks like she's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Mispressed. She's
okay.
Okay.
Cindy, are you able to unmute yourself, perhaps?
There's one more question coming in.
No, that's her.
Oh,
Yeah.
mispressed. Okay, no worry. Yeah.
Let's see whether we can get her question. Yeah. We can extend this session for a few more minutes. And anyone else in the audience have any burning questions that you want to ask? You can take maybe 1, 2 more. This is your opportunity.
Perhaps while we are waiting for the other, I can share some of my input as to when you're going for an interview. What should you not do? Okay, it's not what you should do, but what should you not do? I find that a lot of candidates they tend to, when the interview asks you, can you talk a bit more about yourself? You tend to say your name, which school you come from, what job you're doing. But let me just tell you, that does not define who you are. When they say, who are you? Tell me about yourself. What it means is they want to know who you as a person. So you should talk about your family, you should talk about your hobbies, You should talk about, I'll give you an example. I have this young chap, 28 years old, who come and interview as one of my investment research analysts. And I asked him about who are you? And he said to me the same thing like I just mentioned. Then I say, can you tell me more about your family? And then he talked about my mother is a homemaker. My father is a construction worker. So he obviously coming from a Heartlander family. So I said to him, how's your relationship with your parents? He said, I have not been speaking to my father for the last 13 years. So he is 28 years old, have not spoken to his father for 13 years. So I said, I'm not trying to pry your private affair, but would you mind to share with me what's going on? He said that because when I was 15 years old, I want my father to buy me an iPhone, and he ignored me. All my schoolmates has an iPhone, and I don't have one. So I said to him, have you thought about at that time your father may not be able to afford it because he's a construction worker? He said, I did not think about that because every parent would give an iPhone to the kids. So that's why I expected my parents doing the same. So I say, now you're 28 years old. Have you been to NS service? He said, I have. I say, in the NS service, what is your ranking you are? He said, I just been selected as a commando trainee. I say, why would they select you as a commando? He said, because I am liked by my peer group. I say, is it because you are liked by your peer group, that's why they choose you? They say, actually not. When I go into the training, they actually take me because they feel that I have some leadership skill. I say, being a leader, what is the thing that you think is important? He said, I recognize being a leader, I would have to make unfavorable decisions and my peer may not like me. I say, in that case, what else you learn? He say, it learns that regardless of what family background you come from, in the NS service, you're all equal. So I say, okay, these are good things that you have learned from NS, and I'm happy the Singapore government hear good feedback from you like this. But then in that case, can I ask you a question? It was actually a week before Chinese New Year. I say, you do realize that you're wrong about your father, right? He said, yes, I do. I say, have you apologized to him? He said, I have not. I say, why not? He said, I cannot bring myself to apologize to him. I say, why? He said, I don't know. I say, it's not possible you don't know when you're 28 years old. You have too much ego on yourself, and you know because it's your father, you can get away from it. But that is not the right thing to do. So if you want me to hire you, because I actually quite like you, and I think you have the right kind of qualification, one condition, you go home and apologize to your father, and after you've done that, you tell me, I will offer you the job. A week passed. After Chinese New Year, I still haven't heard from him. So I was giving a career talk to NUS, and I invited him over. In my career talk, I bring up the way how somebody should be themselves. And I mentioned about some of the story that I have. He burst into tears alongside with a few other students. And he come up to me and say, Antonia, I am a coward. I have no courage to tell my father that I am sorry. I say, if you can tell me now and in front of a stranger, and you can't do it to your own father, how can you become a commando? And how can I expect you to protect me in Singapore? That is, you may think I'm very harsh, but I'm trying to give a wake-up call to a young man that they need to understand, if you want to get what you want in life, you have to face up to the reality and be humble. And in the interview, you must know how you actually bring yourself to become vulnerable to the person who interviewed you, who got to know you, to know what kind of person they are getting to employ, who they're going to working with. And then on top of that, do not ask, the question is, how much holiday I'm going to get? Because every company have a leave policy. You will get if you get employed, you will be in the employment letter. That is not an issue. And a lot of you have this habit of doing that. Oh, I'm planning to go on a holiday. If you're going to give me this job, can you accommodate me to come back from my holiday to take me? Hang on, you either want this job or you don't want this job. So don't tell me your holiday is much bigger than the job that you are looking for. So that is really no go. I have, in the past 2 years, I have interviewed 20 people. Out of it, 15 of them asking that question, and none of them get the job. Okay, not that I'm a slave driver. It's just I don't think it is the right attitude. I'm looking for clues to identify the person, the quality, and the personality I'm hiring. So these are the don'ts.
Thank you, Antonia. That again also resonates a lot. Yeah, in terms of what the career advisors say. Obviously, we're not in a position to offer jobs to people, but that's part of what you said also resonates a lot in terms of the advice that we give people. Now, a couple of questions have come in very quickly, again, cognizant of time. Chi Kyong actually asked, what is your view of private banking in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Any quick answers to that?
The quick answer is private banking has got into a very saturated stage. Despite there is a lot of new wealth is to be created, but then the top wealthy people is still is the icing in the iceberg. So that's why you have very little amount of wealthy prospect, and a lot of them has so many private banker and fund manager, investment banker, all sorts of people who are trying to get their wealth. So because of that, the market is so saturated and it's so fragmented. There's not one single primary player that can actually corner the market. And for those ones who try to get into this industry, you also will be compete out if you don't have the right skill set and the right commitment and prepare yourself into it. It's just like any banking industry. There's always a growth period, and then there is a peak, and then there will be a plateau going down. So just be aware of that. But if you build a proper relationship with your client, your career can be a longevity. It can be in private banking, it can be in private wealth management, it can be in external asset management business. So this is important.
And another one from an anonymous on that topic of EAM is, when we move to another bank or an external asset manager, we are tied up with a non-competition policy or non-poaching policy from the previous bank. How do you go around it?
Oh, wow. Okay. I hope for those one who, IBF is the Institute of Banking and Finance, and the members, a majority are banks. Yeah. So I'm not trying to do something unfavorable to the bank, but let me just tell you, first of all, if you have intention to take the book of business that you are now managing based on the organization you're working with, unfortunately, I would call that is not ethical. Let me just share with you my personal experience. When I changed job, I did not automatically assume and carry my existing book of business into another job. Because if you are good, you should believe that you are able to create business from scratch and zero. And you should not rely on your past client to be your commodity that support your career. As I explained to you, the way how to do it, if you want your client to support you, is not telling them that I'm going to move from one job to the other and I need you to continue with me. No, the way to do it is I'm thinking about, why do I want to change job? It's because I'm trying to do things better for you. And because of that, I would, when I get connected to this new position, if you think that I am able to continue to service you, if you're interested, then we can have a conversation. If not, then let's just stay as acquaintance or friend. I never once in my entire career asking my existing client to continue to come with me to another thing. That's why I have never encountered the issue of non-competitive clause in my employment. I never breached once, because from the last job I am in Hong Kong, when I come to Singapore to work in this other bank, I actually started from zero. I started my book of business from zero. But as soon as my past client hear that I got into the new job with the new bank, they are the one who actually initiate the contact with me and ask me, oh, after you left, the people who look after me here is not knowing what they're doing. They don't look after me well enough. Can I come? Now, because of that, then I say, oh, sure. If this is what you're still looking for, and you set the criteria, what you're looking for the client to join you, you actually can strengthen the relationship and weed out those clients that you don't want to keep. So you basically upgraded yourself. But the way to do it is not to trying to circumvent a non-compete clause. Is to basically determine to build yourself the skill set to create a book of business from zero, again and again. That's my answer.
Thank you, Antonia. Okay, given that we're literally kind of out of time, we're going to wrap up the session right now. Before I hand it over to Daphne, I just very quickly, if I may, Antonia, I just wrote down a few things. And it's for everybody that has kindly stayed up to this point, 72 of you guys. The things that I wrote down that maybe served as some sort of pointers or illumination for you. And I just wrote down just words, right? I mean, the power of networking is something that I heard from Antonia. Jumping in to help is something I heard, overcoming objections and biases, yeah, overcoming discrimination, toughen yourself is something I heard as well. Antonia talked about, obviously the importance of technical skills, but at the same time, humility, honesty, self-reflection, why you do what you do, why you want to do something, plugging gaps, power of personal connections, having a heart for people and for clients. I wrote building credibility, strengthening your mentality, research and knowledge to beef yourself up, to make yourself a stronger person. Picking up skills, the importance of languages and cultures, appreciating cultures, diversification of skills, constant learning, loyalty, and building a brand name, for yourself. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I take away from this session, Antonia. Is there anything else that you want to add before, I hand it over to Daphne? Any final words, parting words for the people that have stayed with us till this time?
Not quite final word as such, but I just want to make sure that whoever wants to get into private wealth management, you are not going to look at it as a job. You have to do it as a career, because to build relationship with client takes time. One of my clients I acquired, it took me 8 years to get him on board as my client. So you need to stick out for long haul, and you need to stand the test of time. That means you have to stay in good times and bad times with your client, so that they know that you are there for them. It's not just when the things are good, you are there. Okay? And good luck for every one of you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Antonia. And I guess it's this time for me to hand it over to Daphne. Over to you, Daphne.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Antonia and Adrian, for the wonderful conversation. Antonia, you are truly inspiring. So I have been listening in, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of stories that we can all relate to. But at a point of time, maybe because of age, maybe because of our lack of experience, we did not react that way. And of course, there are some regrets. We hope to turn back time. Okay. So in order to enhance everybody's experience, please kindly help us to go on to www.menti.com and use the code. We'll just take approximately about 30 seconds, and after which I will share with you on the email to contact us, and also on the upcoming webinars that is very suitable for wealth asset managers. Okay, so let's start the Menti if you guys are ready.
Definitely. Yeah. I saw there's some question asked whether these video can be shared, because a lot of them want to share with their other colleagues.
Yes. So we will edit the video in a while, okay, and then we'll share with you. For those who attended the sessions, we will email you separately on this.
And guys, I just wanted to say, it's Adrian here. Thank you for participating in the Menti as well. It's very important to us because it helps us to improve content and also future sessions. So thank you very much for participating. And it will literally, as Daphne said, take you only a few seconds, only I think 4 questions only. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, so the first question is, do you find today's sessions useful for you on a scale 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest? So I'll move on to the next question. For the second question, were you able to relate to the advice or takeaways provided by the speaker? Yes or no? Let's move on to the next question. How likely are you able to apply some of the advice or takeaways provided by the speaker today? on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Okay, let's get to our last question. What topics within the banking and finance sector would you like to find out more about in our future sessions? It's an open-ended answer, so you can just type away. Thank you. Thank you very much for participating in the Menti, and of course being so engaging, and definitely many, many thanks to Antonia for the very inspiring conversation with us today. Do stay connected with IBF and follow us on our LinkedIn. So as mentioned earlier, there's an upcoming IBF Masterclass on the 3rd December. It's actually Web Intelligence for KYC. Okay, so this particular session is especially created for wealth asset managers, okay, to use different layers of the internet and free tools on how to structure your investment as part of KYC or onboarding of your high net worth clients. So you can actually scan the QR code or visit us on our IBF website to know more about the event. And should you have any inquiries, please feel free to email us at events@ibf.org.sg. This includes both questions on the session today, and also if you have any questions for Antonia, we can also help you to actually send it to her. Thank you very much.